So, dear friends, meeting again in the session of philosophy, and we were discussing the Stuart Close philosophy, the chapter number 8, General Pathology of Homoeopathy, a biggest chapter from the Stuart Close, where he tried to correlate the concept of pathology in relation with homeopathy. Not only that, he has tried to explain how this concept of pathology was very much prior to the homeopathy, which was very much prior in the homeopathy because of Hahnemann's inductive reasoning, and everywhere Hahnemann was way ahead in such pathological concept. So the concept was rather different. Allopathy deals only with the material pathology. Homeopathy deals with the dynamic pathology. Basic difference between that, and that's what we have discussed earlier. A big difference that homeopathy considers why this pathology has been developed, which is material in the form of tissue chain, in the form of a cellular chain, and what happens prior to it in the form of a miasms is nothing but the pathology of homeopathy. And Stuart Close has tried to explain this concept in detail, and Hahnemann was the first person who has classified chronic diseases into the 4 types, as the Cuvier has classified the zoology into the 4 types, or Carl Linnaeus has classified the plant kingdom, whole plant kingdom. In the similar manner, in the similar era, Hahnemann was there, and he classified the chronic diseases into 4 varieties. He has first separated the occupational or drug diseases, and thereafter the 3 basic causes of the diseases. First, 2 are venereal in origin. The first which he has found was the syphilitic miasm. The second was psychotic, and then a biggest cause of the chronic diseases during his era, nearly about 7/8 cases were suffering from the this was the sora, and that's what we have discussed up till now. Now Close is trying to explain the role of bacteriology in homeopathy and how Hahnemann was way ahead in the concept of bacteriology. That's what he wants to explain. So let us open your book and just go on page number 92, relation of bacteriology to the homeopathy. This brings us to a consideration of Hahnemann's epoch-making discovery of specific living microorganisms as the cause of infectious diseases such as cholera and the venereal diseases, and of the relation of bacteriology to the homeopathy. See, Hahnemann was the first one who explained that acute diseases out of which epidemic and endemic, they are caused because of acute miasm. The terminology which he used for them was the miasm. He was not having any microscope. He was not having anything which will locate that specific cause. So with the help of his inductive reasoning and with the help of his study regarding the cholera, he came to the conclusion that there are certain microorganisms which are not visible to human naked eyes, but they are present. They generally remains in the ships, in the spaces, confined spaces, and where they grows in multiplies in millions, and they are the scourges, or they are the reasons for the cholera. That was the first thing which he has mentioned, and he has written a booklet how to prevent this cholera. See the difference. He has just explained with the help of his intelligence and reasoning, and he has treated the cholera epidemics. The mortality rate at the Hahnemann time from the modern medicine at that time was nearly 40% or more than 40%. The Hahnemann who treated the cholera cases with the help of homeopathy and with his method, with his preventive approach, and mortality rate at that time was 0.5%. Vast difference. It was because he was knowing what he is treating. In fact, he was considered to be a father of bacteriology because he was knowing the things. Only thing, he has not mentioned it with the name of bacteria, he has mentioned it by the name of miasm. And that is the acute miasm was the terminology which he has used for the bacteria, the viruses, the parasites, and those invisible creatures which are responsible to produce the disease. And that's why it was a way ahead. 50 years later, Robert Koch was there. who looked after under the microscope the comma bacillus and explained to the world these are the cholera bacillus, Vibrio cholerae, and these are the causes of cholera. 50 years later, when Hahnemann was 50 years ahead, the great practical value of Hahnemann's theory of the chronic disease has never been fully appreciated because it has never been fully understood. Same thing is true. Hahnemann's concepts were way ahead. It was not easily digestible to the people who were there at that time. In fact, it was not easily understood. The miasm terminology which he has explained in relation with chronic miasm, at the same time, the acute miasm, both were not easily understood by the peoples at that in his era. And that's why it remained hidden, it never came into the existence. Hahnemann was so far ahead of his time that his teaching in its higher phases could not be fully understood until the science in its slower advance had elucidated and corroborated the facts upon which he based it. And this science has done in a remarkable manner. So it took nearly 50 years for science to reach to there. It was 50 years early because of just a reasoning. This is the difference between the inductive reasoning and material science. Material always flows slowly, and that's why it takes long time to understand. Dynamics always works very fast. Hahnemann, with his inductive reasoning, explained same thing which science has discovered 50 years later. For the suggestion of bacteriology as the basis of rational modern interpretation of Hahnemann's theory of the chronic diseases, we are indebted to the late Dr. Thomas G. McConkie of the San Francisco. This fellow was the person who has first explained that Hahnemann was very right. He was an allopath, but he understood what Hahnemann was telling was very right. His paper, Sora Psychosis and Syphilis, published in December 1908, the North American Journal of Homeopathy, laid the profession under deep obligation to him. The critical insight, originality, open-mindedness, and evident comprehension of the deep significance of the facts of the case displayed in that brief but suggestive paper add poignancy to our regrets that he did not live to work out the fuller exposition of the subject himself. The person who understood Hahnemann's concept, a person from another science, but still understood the concepts of dynamic, and he explained in his paper presented in that specific scientific homeopathic seminar, homeopathic forum, and in the journal specifically, and he explained the details about it. At that time, the modern science looked towards it. Yes, it has something. Till that period, no one was giving so much of value. But the person from their branch, when opened their eyes, then they started looking it. But unfortunately, this fellow never remained live for longer time. And that was loss on the part of homeopathy. Otherwise, it would have more propagated at that time. It is perhaps less important that Hahnemann should be accorded the just recognition due him for his remarkable contribution to the medical science than that the world should be given the benefit of practical teaching included in his theory of chronic diseases. So he was way ahead with with those things. He was in fact explained all those things prior. Those contributions which Hahnemann have explained, later on science accepted. It is not only with bacteriology theory. It was related with every concept. Bacteriology is first of it, one of it. Metastasis, concept of metastasis, Hahnemann have explained way ahead, and then modern science has accepted there is a metastasis. So there are many more, but people were not able to understand what Hahnemann wants to explain. Modern bacteriological science, by long independent research, slowly arrived at the goal Hahnemann reached more than half century before in regard to the nature and causes of certain forms of disease. It has been accomplished much in the way of prophylaxis, sanitation, and hygiene through the use of that knowledge. But the profession at large has failed to follow his logical and practical deductions in regard to the cure of these diseases and to discover means of cure for itself. In this respect, modern medicine is no further advanced than it was in the Hahnemann's day. It is obliged to confess and does confess when driven to the wall that it has no reliable cure for any disease. So Hahnemann was the very clear about his understanding because he has made the experimentation. Whatever Hahnemann was talking was not just a speculation, not just a thought. Whatever Hahnemann have explained is the result of his experimentation, and that's why he was quite sure. When he reached to the discovery of chronic diseases, he was damn sure about this miasm, the venereal miasms and non-venereal miasm, and he explained that one should follow it, see the results, observe the results, what happens after giving homeopathic medicines with this understanding of miasmatic concept, treat the patients, let us see that whether original disease comes out, let us see that it works, let us see that it produces its own results, and then you deny. But no one was performing anything but criticizing. They were only criticizing. What it was the loss for the suffering humanity. Till today, it is a big loss for the suffering humanity who don't have the treatment for such a things. This is very, very ridiculous, in fact, on the part of modern science. And that's why he says over there, Hahnemann have explained all those things and still they were not accepting it. There are now some people who started accepting. Yesterday, I have one case of the acute pancreatitis referred by the pediatric surgeon to me. This is something the person who understands the value of homeopathy, then he refers it to the homeopathy. Today, I have a case of leukemia, acute myeloid leukemia, case which was called to be incurable. They said nothing can be done now, and patient was brought to me. This is in fact should happen. If it happens and if we treat, if we are able to show the results, if we are able to produce the result and explain it to the world with the reports, then people will accept. Then those people will understand the importance of homeopathy. And this is what he is explaining. That's why last sentence. In this respect, modern medicine is no further advanced and that it was in Hahnemann's day. It is obliged to confess and does confess when driven to the wall that it has no reliable cure for any disease. And this is the truth. For chronic diseases, there is no reliable cure. Whatever is there is palliation. Whatever may be the chronic disease, they explain, yes, if there is a diabetes, they explain you have to take the medicine forever. If there is hypertension, that gives the medicine forever. Any chronic disease you label and show that it has cured, no cure, there is a palliation. And this is the difference between homeopathy and allopathy. Vaccine treatment, the second option which was developed by allopaths when they found that it is useless, then vaccine came out. Vaccine treatment, for example, the latest, most general and most widely adopted theory and practice growing out of bacteriology is now acknowledged by the highest representative authority of the regular medicine to be a failure. What he is saying? The vaccine therapy is accepted by many people. Later on, modern medicine themselves consider it is a failure. No one talks about the mortality happens because of mortality and morbidity happens due to the vaccine. No one considers. Because it is given in mass scale, because it is provided by the governments, and that's why the things remain always hidden. But if you reach, if you find it out, there are many more hazards which develop because of vaccine. One must understand, and that's why this is one more method which was developed by modern science, was again in the failure. The editorial opens as follows. The Journal of American Medical Association. See, this is the American Medical Association Allopathic Journal. Page number 21, 1916, presents as the leading article of that issue a paper by Dr. Ludwig Hecton on vaccine treatment and devotes to it a page of editorial comment. So, what the editorial comment is? The editorial opens as follows. Looking backward over the development of active immunization by vaccines during the last 15 years, we appear to be at the termination of one epoch in the therapeutics of infectious disease. In this issue, Hecton traces the stages by which vaccines which were first employed with the attempted scientific control have come into indiscriminate and unstrained use with no guide beyond the statements with commercial vaccine makers are pleased to furnish with their wares. Already most physicians are realizing that the many claims made for vaccines are not born out of facts and that judging from practical results, there is something fundamentally wrong with the method as it presents so widely practiced. As clearly shown by Hecton, the simple fact is that we have no reliable evidence to show that vaccines, as used commonly, have the uniformly prompt and specific curative effects proclaimed by optimistic enthusiasts and especially by certain vaccine makers who manifestly have not been safe guides to the principle of successful and rational therapeutics. So, who says this? This has been said in a big journal, American Medical Journal of Allopathic System, and writer was again an allopath. See, this is too important. Writer was allopath, written in the American Medical History. And what is written? This vaccine is no, there is no fact on basis of which you can find it out the results of vaccine. They themselves explain that it is not reliable. So, see, we are not considering. If we go towards it to find it out the truth, I have seen in my practice, there are many cases which develop, secondary cases which developed after the vaccination. And dangerous, hazardous effects can be developed because of it. There is a case with my daughter only. She was given a BCG vaccine and she went into the coma and she was in coma for 5 days. And they said nothing can be done. Whatever we are giving is just um, waiting for she should come out. But she is having encephalitis, and what we can do? We are doing our best. She was not opening the eyes for 5 days, and she was in. Once a stage happened that her intracath was changed and there was no reaction. I was there. I said, now it's time to give my medicine. They refused, but I have given without their understanding. I have given one dose of opium 30 in her mouth, directly a drop. After opium 30, after 2 hours, she opened the eyes after 5 days. And then she recovered. And thereafter, no more vaccine she has received. No more vaccine. Thereafter, no more allopathic medicine. I have tried that as far as possible. No more. She was premature. That's why pediatrician advised don't give her homeopathy. But later on, I have considered there is no, don't give allopathy. This is very important. Vaccines causes so dangerous things, so dangerous. So, and luckily enough, she never had a effect of it on brain. Luckily. But it may produce damage. I have seen multiple cases of epilepsy because of the vaccine treatment. Multiple deaths have been aroused because of vaccine treatment. Just COVID vaccine patient which was cured by me with CA stomach with metastasis, and she recovered with homeopathy. She started working in the field. Everything was fine. 6 months she was absolutely normal without any problem. And all of a sudden, vaccine, she has taken COVID vaccine without asking me. And within 15 days, everything is finished. Within 15 days, she came with fully developed ascites in the abdomen and died. This is dangerous way. What it can cause, it stimulates, it boosts up your harmonious immunity and ultimately reflects in the problem. So these are the things which can happen because of it. It is not fair and certainly not ingenious, as that keen critic, Dr. E.P. N. Schultz, then editor of the homeopathic recorder, pointed out to put blame for this failure upon manufacturer, since vaccine therapy was born in innermost chamber of the laboratory science. See, Dr. E.P. N. Schultz, the editor of homeopathic reporter, what he pointed out, he blamed this failure upon the manufacturer because the vaccine was prepared inside the test tube and its effects are considered over there, and then they applies it in the similar manner in the patient, considering that this can. The editorial concludes as follows: the fact that much time and effort of the past 10 years appears now to have been wasted, so far as positive results go, should make us doubly cautious in accepting new and somewhat similar procedure until opportunity has been afforded for its verification under conditions favorable for the scientific control. And that's what the editorial concept was there. So it was very important to understand. This is too important. He has made that most scientific control should develop in order to understand this. And these are the things which he has mentioned very clearly. We'll go ahead. Confronted with the demonstrations of the cure by homeopathic medicine in such bacterial diseases as cholera, typhoid, typhus, yellow fever, croup, diphtheria, pneumonia, rheumatism, and even tuberculosis and cancer, the dominant school of medicine has thus far declined to consider them, denied both the cures and principles upon which they are accomplished, and continued to follow the traditional course. We have many examples of treating the cancers and etc. But people never accept, yes, it has been cured with homeopathy. Because it is very difficult for them to digest that our pathy can't do anything and homeopathy does. It still pursues the ancient will be specific for diseases, ever failing and refusing to see the cure is always individual in the concrete case on the patient, never in the generalized disease, and that such a thing as a specific cure for disease does not, and in the nature of things cannot exist, since no two cases, even of same disease, are ever the same. So what is there with allopathy? They do same thing. If you can take into consideration the cancer, surgery, radiation, chemo, finished. Nothing more than that. What is happening? Nothing. Some new molecule trying on human being, making him guinea pig, again trying, and this is what going on. Nothing specific. Nothing. They are accepting that yes, cure happens with such individualization method. You have to find it out, right remedy on the basis of specific principles. It should work. It works. But this is very difficult for them to digest. Realization of such failures and bacteriological confirmation of the teaching of Hahnemann in respect to nature and cause of certain diseases taken together should at least create a presumption in favor of truth of his teaching in regard to the cure of those diseases and lead to a scientific investigation of his method. He says over there, whatever Hahnemann have done regarding this concept of bacteriology, concept of diseases, causes of chronic diseases, one should take into consideration because it was the need of at that time, but no one is looking toward the Hahnemann. In fact, one should look towards all those things with the scientific investigation. If you do that, and if you found truth, follow it. It is so simple. You have to follow. But if you don't follow on the basis of that, then you are criticizing without understanding the concepts of Hahnemann. Dr. McConkie, viewing Hahnemann's theory from the standpoint of bacteriology, pointed out first that we have inherited from the preceding generations as a false, misleading interpretation of what Hahnemann really taught in regard to Sora as the cause of chronic venereal diseases. So, Dr. McConkie, who was allopath, what he says, he when viewed the Hahnemann's theory from the bacteriological standpoint, and then he considered we have inherited from preceding generation a false, misleading interpretation of Hahnemann's really thought of in regard to Sora as the cause of chronic non-venereal diseases. He himself made, we have made a wrong misconception about Hahnemann, but actually what Hahnemann taught was very clear and it was very much based upon scientific evidence. So these are the things. Hahnemann was way ahead regarding all those things. And this is what he wants to explain over there. I think we'll stop over here and we'll continue with it in next lecture. And we have to learn all those things which are very important, how Hahnemann was knowing all those things without having a microscope, and still he was very much ahead than this. So we'll stop over here and we'll meet again in the session of Materia Medica where we'll learn the next part of remedy, Natrium muriaticum. So that's all for today. Thank you being there, and we'll have a chat at sharp at 8 o'clock. Thanks a lot.